some really insecure people making a lot of unnecessary sounds with their cars and motorcycles. This morning, I don't even think it's 7 a.m. The sun is just up, and the streets are empty. I guess that's why they can do it. Like, they're so far away and I can still hear them. Anyway, hi and welcome to my channel. I'm Saint Sir Coach. You can call me Saint, you can call me Coach, you can call me Sir, you can call me Sir Coach, you can call me Saint Coach, you can call me Saint Sir, Sir Saint, Coach Saint, Saint Coach, call me whatever. You know, as long as there's respect, you can call me whatever. And yeah, today there's a lot I want to talk about. There's like the main topic at hand, but then for me, this kind of points to some themes that the themes aren't really simple, but they can be brought down to saying, oh, this is actually just another example. And I don't say just as to like throw it away, but to say, okay, everybody, like, we always say we want signs and we want symbols and synchronicities. Like, we're like, man, I wish I was psychic and I could, like, you know, see the future, or I wish I could read someone's mind, or I wish, you know, but y'all don't realize, a lot of people don't realize that, like, there have been signs, there's been synchronicities, and there's been symbols, and you don't even have to look for them. Your whole life, they're there. They're there. However you experience and perceive your experience and your reality, they're there. They're there. As you change and transform into different phases, different interests in your life, hang out with different people, outgrow people, it happens. It's there. It's there. As patterns emerge in your life, it's there. It's there. You know, with the things you continuously complain about, it's there. The things you wish you had, and think you do not have, it's there, and so on and so forth. So the title of this video is Why Ken Jeong Calls Nick Cannon Daddy, and How Trixie Mattel Saved the Future of America. And really what I'm talking about today is the Divine Feminine. Again, I recently did a video on Divine Feminine, this Gemini season in 2024, which has been really prominent already. We're only, Gemini, every season kind of starts the month prior, kind of towards the end of the month, and then it takes up the next consecutive month, like 2.5, 3 weeks of it. So we're in June now. So we're in the first week of June, but really in the thick of Gemini season. And before we know it, Gemini season will be over. But we're definitely in it now. My mom happens to be a Gemini. My mom lost custody of me at a very early age. At the age of, I think I was about to turn 7 years old. My mom lost custody of me. So she lost custody of me when I was 6 years old in the first grade. And my father lost custody of me and was imprisoned when I was 5 years old. And then it was just me and my mom after that. And then I lived with people who didn't let me live my life the way I wanted to exactly, or didn't let me be as special as my parents led me to believe I was, and really in the fact that, like, I was told at a very early age I was capable of a lot. And it kind of continued that way, at least in school, and in different arts programs. I was still told I was like a prodigy, child prodigy. And then as soon as I hit teen years, it's like, you're a loser, you're not special. And then as soon as you hit adulthood, it's like, you're actually crazy for thinking you're special. Like, the doctors are telling you you need medication because you think you're special. And this is where I love to play around with the idea of psychic or psychosis, like psychotic or psychic. To me, they're actually the same exact thing. If you think about what psychic abilities are, psychic gifts, the people who, everybody is psychic, just like everybody's neurodivergent, quote unquote, or neurodiverse, right? Everyone experiences anxiety and depression and grief at some point in their lives. Whether it rules their lives and their minds and they feel succumb to it, is a different story. And I've been all over the place with different emotions. I've also gotten all kinds of diagnoses. I've gotten diagnosed with PTSD, chronic PTSD, complex PTSD, autism, ADHD, unipolar depression, major depressive disorder, bipolar 1 with psychosis, and who knows what else. Okay, I think my cat is like eating or something. Yes, my cat is eating breakfast. I was like, what is these sounds I'm hearing? Not hallucinating. My cat is actually eating and she's crunching on the kibble. But today I really want to talk about like how the divine showed up in my life. When I was younger, it was really beautiful. And like the idea of being a woman was really beautiful. The idea of being a little girl was really beautiful. And then I grew up and then it was like so hard and awful. And then I grew into identifying as trans, non-binary, and I've kind of changed the language about what that is for me over the years. But it didn't really come out as non-binary until college. However, at the time, not really many people were identifying as non-binary, and even trans folks did not really get as much recognition as they did until like the subsequent years. So I came out kind of on a small scale, and then kind of came out more publicly to friends and classmates and colleagues, and then started putting my foot down and said, you're not going to misgender me, which I think is a different phase of like coming out as non-binary and trans, and using pronouns and a different name. And I actually went through like 5 names before I finally settled on one to legally change my name to, that felt like I was choosing it for me and not because it was convenient for other people. And just now, right, like this is, so wow, that was almost 10 years ago. So about 9-ish years ago, or maybe 8.5, it depends, but I would say maybe 9 or 10 years, because I came out to myself first, of course, that I came out as trans non-binary, where I actually had the language and was like, yes, that's it. But first I actually identified as a demigirl, and then there was times where I identified as trans masculine, but non-binary didn't. I didn't identify as a man, and I still don't, and I make that very clear to people. Even when I do use he, him pronouns, that's just to shake things up, really, to get people like out of their heads, and out of preconceived notions. So, for me, it's really been about, I know how people treat women with sexism, misogyny, and so forth. And it's just so disrespectful. It's like disrespecting your mom, whether it's your biological mom or your birth mom or an adoptive mom, a foster mom, or more aptly so, our earth mom, Mother Nature, Gaia herself, right? Shahina, like, disrespecting the mother of all mothers is what happens when you disrespect a woman of any kind, or when you even disrespect the divine feminine within yourself or within someone else who may not even be a woman, because femininity is not limited to only girls and women, which blows a lot of people's minds if they live in a Western culture that's super rooted in the binary of there are only men and women, there are only men and women, which of course complicates everything. But really, my story, where it starts, is not just with my mom, but also with Britney Spears. When I was little, I'm not a girl, not yet a woman. That was a song by Britney Spears that came to me as I decided to pull some. I have a tarot oracle deck for Britney Spears, and I'll say the author's name in the description below, so you can find that deck if you would like to purchase it. I bought it in a store in person, but I'm sure you can find it online somewhere. And I want to explain the cards I pulled from this deck, because before I get into this topic, it's really important, I think, to share like what the divine feminine used to mean to me and what I'm trying to learn and like remember. It's like I've been brainwashed with like fake amnesia, and so now I'm like giving myself the antidote, being like, oh yes, Britney, it's always been you, it's always been you. And what's great is Britney's like still so young. She's like only in her 40s now, like, you know, not to, you know, age her, but she's really not even that old. You know, she's a millennial. She's very much a millennial. So I'm a baby millennial. I'm literally I was born the last year that is considered the end of the Generation Y, millennial generation. And so the year after me is the beginning of Gen Z. And so it's funny because sometimes there's a big difference even in the memories I have of technology changing, music shifting, memories of TV, even sometimes between someone born a year after me, 2 years, 3 years after me. Definitely when it gets to 5 years after me, there's a huge shift where these folks don't even remember dial-up or floppy disks, or vaporwave Windows PCs, like, you know, or even Ask Jeeves or old Mac computers. Like, people really don't remember unless they've like looked up or seen memes. Like, millennials create memes, and so sometimes the nostalgia is there, but otherwise, you know, Gen Z is running the internet most of the time. And so there's a lot y'all might not know. If you're more in the Gen Z category, there's a lot that you might not realize or make the connections with the things I'll bring up today. And so I'm really excited to be able to kind of bridge this Gen Z, Gen Y gap. And for me, right, starting with Britney Spears, we have the first card, the Rebel. She's dressed in a scantily clad black lacy bodysuit with this faux fur, or maybe it's real fur, shawl over the shoulders. Hair is kind of messy but spontaneously sexy, and she's got dangling black earrings, and a fishnet stockings. Are they called stockings? Maybe they're called something else. Like, they're not like pantyhose where they start from the waist. They're just like socks. They're like knee-high stockings, I think they're called. And then black high heels, the Rebel. And that is with a purple background. Purple is a color that's associated with the mystic and the spiritual, although in this deck, you know, it doesn't get into colors, I believe. Wait, let me double check that it doesn't get into colors. It does not. Nope. So that's just me reading into that. But I think it's important because there's a lot of power there. This is associated when Britney was doing a lot of clapbacks. Like the media was trying to, judge her, and she was unapologetically herself. Like, no, I'm going to date who I want. I'm going to make music how I want. You're not going to scrutinize me. And if you do, I'm going to come for you again. I'm going to come back for you. Clap, clap. So this was early 2000s. 2004 specifically was when Britney covered Bobby Brown's My Prerogative. And then we have Bubblegum Brit with a green background. And she kind of looks like she's working at a diner, right? She's holding a milkshake in a silver platter. She's got her hair in 2 pigtails with fluffy white hair ties. She's blowing the bubblegum. She has the notepad tied around her waist to the side. And she's got a bedazzled bee. For Britney, of course, or the name of the diner on her uniform, which is pink with black lapels and collars. And then, black pantyhose, black sneakers, Bubblegum Brit. And this is actually remembering, that she was such a trendsetter, all the things from the early 2000s and even the things that are coming back now, or even the things that were popular even in the 2010s, from crop tops to graphic tees to even TikTok dances, learning choreography with friends at sleepovers. It started with Britney, because Britney was both the girl next door, a regular person, we knew almost, and also this up-and-coming pop star. She was already a pop star, but she was still a kid, still a teenager, living her life. And so it kind of reminds me of this golden age of what it meant to be a girl and grow up to be a girl. And I remember when I was little, I wanted to be 16 so bad. I couldn't wait to be 16. I wanted a boyfriend. I wanted a pink convertible. I wanted a belly button piercing. I wanted a nose ring. I couldn't wait to be a cheerleader. None of these things I did or had or, obtained. That wasn't the life for me. But, Britney, gave me that want, desire. Then we have the fashionista, which is just a simple pair of black heels and a pink mini dress, which kind of has stripes and almost braided woven details and patterns on it that go in different directions, but in a synchronous way. Some are vertical stripes, some are horizontal stripes. And this is really reminding us about how even if we're staying home, if we're not feeling well or we want a mood booster, we just put on a great outfit. Maybe some makeup if we want to. Maybe even the shoes. Why the hell not? And how that can make us feel so much better. Then we have, and that's on a blue background. So the pink and blue, of course, that gives me a lot of trans and gender references, of course. And of course, that's the way you can express your gender, right? Through clothing, in a really fun way, because you can dress androgynously, you can dress with what's coded as feminine clothing, what's coded as masculine clothing, or because it's you, people won't even care which department of the store it came from. They'll just misgender you or gender you anyway, right? And so on a purple background, we have Britney standing with kind of one leg slightly bent and one arm on her hip. And she is just cheesing with this silver sparkly dress and a silver necklace coming down from her neck onto her chest, and silver heels to match. The movie star, purple background. And this is in relationship to Britney's starring role in the movie Crossroads. If you didn't know, Britney Spears auditioned for The Notebook, and she didn't get it, even though she's an amazing actress. But Crossroads is a story of when she graduated high school, her and her two friends go on a road trip to find her mother, the character Britney's playing, her mother. So for me, I didn't even realize that's what it was about when I was younger, because I was only like 6 years old when it came out. But I remember begging my mom to let me see this movie. It was rated PG-13, so you know, I really was like, I'm like in my head, I feel like I was like, my mom might not let me see this movie, but it's my mom, and she had taken me to PG-13 movies before. Usually there's just language and like kissing, which my mom covered my eyes for anyway. And that's what the case of this movie was. You know, there wasn't anything too graphic about it that I can recall. But that same year, my mom lost custody of me, and I was put into custody of someone who did not let me watch PG-13 movies until I was 13. Even then, I still had parental controls on my computer, house computer, and TV, and my phone, on everything. And so even when I did turn 13, I still had a lot to prove of like why I wanted to watch a movie or go to see a movie in the theater if it was PG-13, you know, like oh, it must be inappropriate if it's rated that. Why do I want to see it? Like, I had to come up with reasons. And I wasn't allowed to have caffeine, so no sodas with caffeine, no Starbucks. So Starbucks, when it got popular at first, I wasn't allowed to have any Starbucks. Of course, I was growing up, so those kinds of things, like caffeine does stunt your growth if you're a minor. So that is something to consider for people under 25 and under 18. Like, you can, you know, shrink, or maybe that's why I'm so short, is because my mom let me drink Coca-Cola, you know, cherry Coke when I was like age like 2 to 6, and maybe that's why I'm only 4'11". I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't recommend giving caffeine to children. But all that aside, Britney Spears, iconic. I remember when I was like in the 5th grade, that's when Britney had shaved her head for the first time and had kind of a breakdown. And then there was someone on YouTube, which also was not that popular at the time, but this was one of the first videos on YouTube to go viral, where people who didn't even watch the video knew about the video. That's how viral it was. That kind of virality that we see today in 2024, where it's like someone doesn't even have to directly come across it. They just need to know the reference, and they'll immediately know what it's referring to, because that's how powerful people use it or talk about it in conversation. And I remember this video was like, "Leave Britney alone." And it was someone just screaming like, "Leave Britney alone, like let her be herself and stop judging her. Like, she is an icon. She gave us all this beautiful music. She, you know, was doing her thing, and then like things happen in life that make us freak out and lose our marbles and, you know, get upset and shut down and isolate, and all kinds of emotions we can feel as human beings. That doesn't mean we have less worth all of a sudden. Like, it's Britney. So Britney had a million comebacks. I remember then when I was like in high school or middle school, she was already starting to have comebacks with new albums, and they were amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Britney. Britney's back. But I would have to listen to Britney Spears, you know, in quiet and in secret, because I wasn't sure that my family would approve of me listening to Britney, because they canceled Britney Spears. They canceled my family that I ended up growing up with when my parents lost custody of me. the people who raised me, they canceled every celebrity. If a celebrity could be quote unquote canceled because of something they did that they could be judged upon and against from like regular people who are just reading headlines and watching the news, who don't know them personally, they would attack them. They would go in and go hard and be like, you better not turn out like that. And for me, it was really sad, because even Britney Spears now has had multiple comebacks, and you know, the conservatorship and everything, she's had children, she's on Instagram posting a lot, she is really living her best life and showing that, you know, even if you fall down, you can get back up. Even if you fall down, you can get back up, and you should keep on getting back up as much as you can. The resiliency in her divine feminine, in her feminine energy, in just being unapologetically herself, completely mirrors like how we should all approach resiliency, and in the face of oppression, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, racism, ableism, elitism, classism, anything that is bunkering us down, we can rise up and rise against these forces. And I think that's really important. So anyway, Britney, it's Britney, bitch. Britney was that girl, is that girl, will always be that girl, that bitch for me. Beyonce too, but Britney kind of came out first as like a solo artist, whereas Beyonce was Destiny's Child first, so was in a group, and then kind of stuck out and started her solo career with her first albums. Her first solo album was 2003. So Beyonce also did that for me, but at the time, the way things shook out when I was younger, I listened more to Britney Spears, actually, you know, from whatever age, from when I was really little, like 6 years old, 5 years old, 4 years old, listening to Britney Spears. Imagine a kindergartner listening to, like, I'm a slave for you, and like all these things, like possibly inappropriate, but you know, I didn't understand anything. I even did like crop tops, like I wore my shirt, you know, like this, tucked in with the middle tucked in, and pulled it down, so then it looked like I was wearing like a deep V-neck, showing off my butterfly chest tattoo here. You know, I would do that in the living room and perform Britney Spears choreography, or my own choreography to Britney Spears songs, to my family, my grandparents, and my mother, when I was like 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. And yeah, it was really quite a time for me. So speaking about the divine feminine, I am going to continue this video because it's not just about Britney, but that was the background, and maybe I'll put timestamps or little signatures or notes in the description, so folks can kind of follow along and kind of jump ahead if they were just here for the headline. That's kind of the origin of where I'm coming from when I speak about the divine feminine. So then when I talk about Barbie, you know the significance of what Barbie also meant at the time for the kids growing up on Britney Spears, growing up on, you know, these other examples of what divine feminine could be. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, another example of the divine feminine. So, man, Barbie dolls for me, I remember Barbies themselves, I don't even think I had that many. I really remember having like one Barbie, one Ken, maybe a couple Barbies, but not many. Not as much compared to Polly Pockets, My Scene dolls, and Bratz dolls. And those other dolls usually had their clothes on, and they had their like, accessories. They had maybe little environments like a shopping mall that they played in. Whereas Barbie, I just always had Barbie naked, Ken naked, and they were always just dry humping each other and hitting each other's bodies. And so basically they're just always fornicating. And they didn't really have a life outside of neither of them. I think I broke my Ken's, one of Ken's legs once, so then I got a second Ken to replace him, and then I quickly just took off all of his clothes. And I remember being like, this is inappropriate for a kid, right? Like, I should put their clothes back on. But like, I couldn't think that far ahead. You know, I was little enough to know, like, okay, sex is when people take their clothes off. But that's like all I knew. And I didn't really know what exactly the point of sex was. I was only like 5, 6 years old. But like, I would see like it on TV, right? Like hinted at, or even people in their underwear, but they're hinting at sex, right? Simulated sex happening on TV and film. I happen to be a certified intimacy coordinator, so that's kind of funny for me now. And, you know, of course, I would not ever let real actors just hump each other naked like that, without things in between. Even if they agree to full nudity, they can't be actually touching bodies. But for a Barbie and a Ken doll, I was just smacking them against each other like I was banging them. Well, they were banging, yeah, for sure. But something about, you know, then you have the Barbie World song by Aqua, and that song I didn't know until middle school. Can't remember how old it was at that time. I don't think it was even that old. I think it had actually recently come out at that time. I won't continue to age myself and say what years I was in middle school. But when I was a teenager, an emo teenager, I remember that song. My friends and I would listen to it a lot, kind of jokingly, ironically, but also not, because we also listened to a lot of songs that were kind of like spunky. Kind of remember the band 303, like thinking about these bands like for scene kids and emo kids that maybe were upbeat, but they were weird, or they had sad lyrics, but the melody was upbeat. You know, it was really made for a specific kind of crowd. And there are definitely so many other songs that were like that. I'm trying to remember one in particular, but it's really not coming to me. This is when we said rawr, like roar, but R-A-W-R, you know, in text and online. This was like when MySpace was still a really popular thing, and I lied about my age to get onto MySpace. So I think I was like a year too young to be on MySpace, because the age limit was 13, and I was maybe 12 years old. Just taking a sip of my matcha there. Yeah, so then we have the Barbie movie that came out last year in 2023. I ended up like talking to people on like dating apps that knew people who worked on the movie. I had friends that had family members that worked on the movie, were a part of the movie in really big ways. And then I had friends that were like, that movie was trash because there was no representation that was accurate or diverse. It was mostly just about the white girl, which we have enough of, right? That was what their biggest concern was for that movie, that it claimed to be revolutionary, feminist. It's not feminist, and this is why I don't identify with feminism, because a lot of feminism is white feminism. The only feminism that's not white feminism is hip-hop feminism, which if you think about it, hip-hop feminism, very clearly we have examples of this where it's not just theory, where you have to read it. People are living it as their truth. Ice Spice, Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, Queen Latifah, Missy Elliott, Miss Lauryn Hill. So anyone else I wanted to say? Megan Thee Stallion, a really, really big one when it comes to hip-hop feminism, right? And then we have, of course, queerness and disability are included within hip-hop feminism, because hip-hop feminism recognizes that as people of color, as black women are set up to have the shortest end of the stick in the United States, especially in the colonized West. So they're likely to have some kind of disability, whether that's asthma, diabetes, or something else. And a lot of them are queer, even in the aspect of just loving each other and loving sisters. Like the color purple, you know, the color purple, it's kind of ambiguous whether they're gay or not. Like that's the vibe, right? it's like hyping up your bestie as a quote-unquote baddie so much that you're like, wait, are y'all together? And it's like, no, you know, but I love that girl, and you know, she could get it. She could get anything she wants, you know. And it's like so inspiring, and then a lot of people aspire to be as confident as these black rappers and hip-hop artists today, right? Janelle Monáe, as a non-binary person, still embodies the divine feminine in this way that is fluid and beautiful and sensual and sexy, right? And has really taught us a lot about how art and music can be ways to explore spirituality and the divine feminine. So they're also a great example. So the thing about the Barbie movie is I think it was successful at exactly what it needed to do. And there is a reason why, you know, in society we think, oh, it's all white men's fault and white men are in control. And we all are like, mer, mer, mer. We hate white men, mer, mer, mer. Rich white men, mer, mer, mer. But then the crosswalk symbol in the US is a white man walking. Even Trevor Noah made a joke about this in one of his stand-ups where he's like, why is it that, like, the crosswalk, you have to wait for a white man to tell you when to walk? And I was like, well, because the background is black, and so the contrast so you could see it. I mean, I guess they could also make the background white and the man black, but then think about electricity wise, you would have the wattage where it's predominantly producing light, because the crosswalk person and the red hand are actually like light brights, like they're pixelated light, and then I think the background is actually not lit at all. So I think it was for power reasons, because yeah. But what's interesting is I've also, in the spiritual community, noticed there's a lot of women and non-binary people who say that their biggest teachers and mentors have been cis white men, people who've been really privileged cis white men. And this is, I find, because of their place of privilege, they're able to dive deeper into the esoteric, into the mystic, into the spiritual. Now, they have to want to, and they have to know happiness lies in those realms, as opposed to just buying things and just being rich and being a millionaire. Like, for example, you have Elon Musk, and Elon Musk doesn't seem to be that spiritual. If he was, then, you know, he'd be a really different guy. Donald Trump, not really spiritual, but would be a really different guy as well, right? So we see all these people with money because they're thinking that, oh, it's like just money and materialism that will bring me happiness, and they realize it doesn't. And so they keep just making a fool of themselves. And the one place they're not going is church or temple, or even the worship and spirituality spaces within themselves, within their friend circles, asking their friends like, hey, like, do you mind if I ask you about how you celebrate this holiday with your family, or what your spiritual practice is? Like, even just asking friends who you know are spiritual or have a designated religion or faith, like how they do it and what they do and what it means to them, if it's important or not, is those are really valuable conversations that we're just not having enough, especially because we decided long ago to separate church and state, church and science. Church isn't, but then we have people swearing on the Bible in court. Like, that doesn't make any sense. It make sense. It doesn't. So here's my 2 cents. It doesn't make sense, right? And so we have all this irony. So it makes sense that a lot of media, it's a lot of whiteness that we see portrayed, a lot of the privilege, because it's people with privilege who then can do things that take longer, like writing TV shows, writing movies, creating shows like Friends, where it's like majority white characters and all the main characters are white. And they live in an unrealistic apartment for the city of Manhattan. And yet it's relatable. And yet it's still relatable. Why? So thinking about all of these things in life, I'm not saying that I've experienced white supremacy, in all kinds of ways and forms, in a systemic way, in a personal, direct way, where white men have tried to come for me. Usually they're just honestly playing devil's advocate, or just really, really, for lack of a better word, stupid. Yeah, I can think of a different word, and I don't like using that word because I think we use in an ableist way. I don't mean that here. I just mean like they're literally ignorant. But then remember the phrase, ignorance is bliss? Ignorance is bliss. Because the more they would ask me, like the more they didn't know about that they would ask me about, the more upset I would be. Like, why are you asking me about this as if you're doubting it? No, they're not doubting it to be true. And they're not doubting what I'm saying. That is actually me projecting that onto them, and then it's being reflected, like hitting me in the face as a mirror back onto myself. So what I love about this one tarot deck, it's created by the Asian and Pacific Islander Literary Review. It is open in case of emergency. And the Devil card, it lists, like, in different cultures what the devil represents. Then it says for academics and in academia, especially the academic to activist pipeline, or that social justice warrior area, an arena, white supremacy is the devil, right? And we're so quick. We are so quick to blame white supremacy and patriarchy on for everything. We're gonna say, oh, all my problems are because of this system. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? Because you can sit here all day and complain about white supremacy and white men, and at the end of the day, you're in your house alone and you don't even live with any white men. So what are you saying? So, and I use this as an example. If you're white, or you're literally a white man, then, you can maybe take different perspectives on this. This is obviously from my perspective. But the blame is just in the wrong place. However, whiteness, and this has come up for me when I was in theater classes a lot too, was like, why are like white characters like the default? Or like people cast white actors in roles as the default. if the character's race is not described, they're almost always cast with a white actor, white actress, white performer. And that is because whiteness is like a blank template for archetypes and tropes. And I don't say that to be trivial or rude to white people, but if you're white, then you should be able to like take it easy and breathe while I say this, because what it is actually these mind games of like virtual reality and the matrix that humans have created. Like, we've made up white supremacy. You realize that, like, we've made it up, just like we made up everything else. We made up racism, we made up like colorism. Like, nobody is better than anyone else. We know that to be true. But then we're also like, but white supremacy feels so real, and it is real, but it's not. So what is real? You know, real, reality, real. And so we get lost in that sauce. But thinking about, if you have a black actor playing Ariel the Little Mermaid, all of a sudden, that character, once they're on stage, the audience is going to project everything they know and think, or think about blackness onto the character because of the actor playing that character. And so now Ariel is black. Who knows what the black experience underwater is like. You know, like, people are really thinking like that. And like, nah, dude, nah. Underwater? You think people are thinking about race underwater? No. Look at all the colors and all the rainbows underwater. Or, you know, for folks who are blind or low vision, you know, underwater and undersea animals and animal life, like fish, coral, anemone, like all of these things are all kinds of iridescent colors, fluorescent colors, luminous colors. They're glowing. Some of them are rainbow, some of them shimmer, some of them are black, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're even poisonous or evil. Some of them do it for self-preservation, to protect themselves. You have sharks, you have dolphins, you have whales, you know, you have little tiny clownfish, you have coral reefs, you have seaweed, you have starfish. You know, these are all shapes and sizes under the water, just like a what? On land? Whoa. So we have like all kinds of animals. Like, you don't even have animals that have necessary gills living underwater, like, and they're still able to breathe underwater, and they're under there in the ocean or in a lake or a river. So why I say that is that the original Barbie that I knew growing up was white. The original Barbie I knew, with the permanent high heel arched feet. Like, I'm trying to do them with my hands. Can't do them with my hands, but I can definitely do them with my feet. But I won't do that because no free foot pics on here. But you know, because I've literally seen I have not seen Barbie the movie, but I'm one of those people where I only need to see a trailer and hear a few people talk about a movie and read like an article to know exactly like the whole thing of how people have perceived it, how it was meant to be perceived, and what my perception of a movie is. Like, there's some movies I don't need to watch them, and I probably won't ever. Barbie movie is probably one of them. Maybe one day I'll watch it. We'll see. But I remember a big thing of why Bratz dolls and My Scene dolls were so important to me is because they both had like Latinx, brown, Asian, and black dolls that were made of the same kind of similar materials Barbie was made out of, but they looked totally different. And also they had style, they had a different kind of personality that Barbie just didn't. Barbie was so boring. Whether she was a doctor or an astronaut, Barbie was boring. And then, of course, you have black Barbies. They did make black Barbies and Barbies in other ethnicities, but those didn't do as popular. especially not as popular as the entire doll collections like My Scene and Bratz, which went even further to be like, well, we're not just doing this as like a limited series or whatnot. Like, they're actually coming out right off the gate of like, this is a diverse group of friends, and this is how they all look different. Whereas Barbie, she was just like a one of one, which was kind of self-righteous and weird, but also she was kind of a blank slate. So, you know, there also was this doll, I can't remember what it was called, but, and I'm not gonna look it up now because I'm already recording, but there was this doll, maybe you can look it up, where you could actually draw. It was like literally white, and you could, and it came with a marker, like a wet marker. You could wet it, and you could draw onto the doll the features you wanted, how you wanted the eyes to look, how you wanted the nose, how you wanted the ears and lips, and that was huge, 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 huge. At the time, the technology wasn't there where it would really come out that well, and like that, I didn't have those artistic skills to really draw when I was like 4 or 5 years old. But that idea that you could like customize your own doll was pretty innovative. And it was something where almost Barbie is almost that. You know, you take off, you know, her clothes, and, you know, she's still like so bare and neutral. And neutral in a way where it's like, there's so many places this, and so many directions this can go, because it's not overly one thing or the other. She's just some white girl. she's just a doll, you know. And so it's just funny that I played with her actually the least. I think, well, I played with her, you know, with the Ken doll, but she was like always naked. And when it came to personality, when it came to storytelling, when it came to, hey everybody, like playing with my imaginary friends and the voices, I'm an only child, I would do it with my other dolls. Or when I would want to create worlds, I would do it with my other dolls. Like, Barbie was not out here creating worlds or any realities of mine, any dreams of mine, you know, but she was classic. And I really love the fact that her feet were like permanently on like tiptoe, because I tiptoed walk until I was like 10 years old, which is one of the prominent characteristics actually associated with autism. Not everyone, but a lot of people who walk on their tiptoes for like years, like past the age of 5 and 6, it correlates to autism spectrum disorder sometimes, or other neuro divergence, quote unquote divergence, or being special. And so why I bring up Barbie is to bring up the divine feminine. The divine feminine in this country, as we know, which I mentioned earlier, right, is oppressed. I personally experienced this because I literally end up learning how to oppress the feminine within myself. And then I oppressed it, and then there'd be times in my life where I dressed really masculine and androgynous to overcompensate, because I didn't want anyone calling me a girl or with she, her pronouns, but then it would happen anyway. And then there'd be times where I didn't care, and I would own my androgyny, and it would be truly androgynous. There'd be times where I was still discovering myself, but I really loved cutesy and quote unquote girly things like soft colors, like pastels, pinks, purples, and glitter makeup, and cute clothes and outfits, as opposed to how basic cis boys dress. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna be like that. Like, clothing is everything to me. And since I was little, like expressing myself, you know, you have that fashionista card again from Britney, right? Like expressing myself through clothing when I was silenced by other people in my life, especially silenced by adults and silenced by society, was the only way I could express myself, or felt like I could express myself. And so I did, and I wore whatever I wanted to the point where I would show up to school without all my frills and things, and people would say, "Are you feeling okay? You're dressed so normal today. It's weird." Like, people would look forward to how quirky I was, to how much I was expressing myself, that quirkiness, that eccentricity, that wild, untamed rebellion, that weirdo energy is associated with the divine feminine, which is expansive, fluid, and does not limit herself to the dogmatic, pragmatic restrictions of the masculine patriarchy. All right, so now we're thinking about the patriarchy, and we're thinking about divine feminine, and if we're remembering that we all have divine feminine and divine masculine qualities within all of us, and we all need to heal those parts within all of us and within the world, even though the world, for a lot of us, is ruled by majority patriarchal masculine structures. I would say they're not divine, they're corrupted. They're corrupted and they're distorted. So not really divine, but just masculine, like toxic masculinity, right? So then we have Ken Jeong. Ken, I would say, is the Ken I prefer, as opposed to Ryan Gosling as Ken. So making that connection. So imagine Ken Jeong is driving a car, pulls up and is like, "Hey, you want to go see a movie? You want to go to the club? You want to go to school? Do you want to, go on this TV show with me? Do you want to go to a concert?" Like, Kevin Jeong pulls up and I'm getting in that passenger side. The passenger side of my best friend's ride. Because Ken Jeong is the kind of person who is not just unapologetically kind, the kind of person I want to be friends with. Not this pathetic white boy who's singing about, "Oh, is it just my feelings?" Because then he's distorting the divine feminine within himself as well, and putting himself down within that "I'm just Ken" song. It's literally so, it's sad and pathetic in a way where it's like, you don't deserve our sympathy though, because what you're doing is you're actually turning against your emotions and making us think that having emotions is bad or meant to be made fun of, which is not, right? And then you're also comparing yourself to a woman who's more powerful than you, and you're complaining that she doesn't love you, notice you, and almost suggesting that she shouldn't have that much power at all. Like, come on, guys. Like, how many representations of mommy issues do we need to see in mainstream media to recognize that these mommy issues are coming from our issues with Mother Earth, Gaia, the divine feminine, not just our actual, like, mommies on the earthly plane as humans. It's much larger than that. And that's why we all have mommy issues with the mother of us all, which is not even Earth. It's the universe. It's the feminine of the universe itself, which is represented on Mother Earth as Mother Nature, and emotions, and community, and the arts, and food, and gardening. You see all these magical ways that femininity shows up, and you're like, "Hey, I garden, I cook, and I'm a dude." It's like, yeah. How's that working out for you? And do you welcome femininity into those spaces and into that work for you so that it's more peaceful? Or do you hold yourself to rigidity that toxic masculinity is actually imprisoning you within something you love, preventing you from actually further exploring and diving deeper? Curiosity, expansion, also feminine traits and qualities, right? And so on The Masked Singer, which is a show about singers in costumes who are later revealed to be celebrities, politicians, public figures, authors, comics, actors, performers, dancers, famous people, basically, that are sometimes household names or just really recognizable. but they auto-tune and do weird things to their voice when they're talking, so the judges and the audience can't recognize them. But then they let them sing without anything covering their voice. But if you've ever heard anyone sing, especially folks who have trained in singing or are naturally really gifted singers who know how to manipulate their voice really well, their singing voice often doesn't sound the same as their speaking voice, right? And so that's a big part of the show. And they really, really do well to hide the identity of these celebrities, but they do give out clues. But it's funny how this show, I originally was watching as a guilty pleasure, then said, there's no guilt behind it. This is like, it started to be a reward for me. When I was diagnosed with ADHD, I needed a reward for my dopamine to really encourage me to do other tasks. So I was like, well, let me just watch The Masked Singer, the next episode of The Masked Singer, or I'll do this and then I'll get to watch an episode. So I would do the task before or after watching an episode. And honestly, like, the reveals have been so good because it's a family show, but anyone can watch it, and a lot of the times it's like only adults that really recognize the celebrities, because the celebrities are adults usually. They're usually definitely 18 and over, but most of the time they're in their 30s or 40s or 50s or plus, much older. So it's really the older people in the audience, the parents, or the people who are old enough to be parents, old enough to be responsible parents, I should say, because technically like a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old can be parents. And it's, really, really opened up my world to watch this show, especially because there's so much significance in the first season, who won, and then the most recent seasons, who's been winning, and what their journeys have been like, their real life journeys, and their journeys on the show. And the most recent one was really, really specific to me and my healing, and touched my heart. I didn't get to watch the finale because I was in the hospital, and now I don't really watch TV. But it really, I knew that this person was going to win, and I knew who it was under the mask, but I thought I knew who it was last season, and so I just hoped and hoped it was this person this time, and it really broke open my heart. But it was well deserved and beautiful. So on this show, Jeong, who is a comedic actor, he was on Community. I think he was even in, is he in The Hangover? I think he was even in The Hangover. I haven't seen these TV shows or movies as they were rated R or whatever, or and I was a little younger when these came out. And then he's done a lot of other shows and movies by now. But he still remains really low key as a celebrity, except for the fact he is a judge on The Masked Singer, which is a really huge show. And he kind of offsets all the other celebrities. You have Jenny McCarthy, who is a talk show host, who knows all these celebrities, by their first name because of her husband being previously a boy band type dude. You have Robin Thicke, the son of Alan Thicke, who is a really big performer and recognized and respected as super classy too. But Robin is really interesting to have on there because some of the older celebrities will be and I remember you, Robin, when you were little because of your dad. And his dad has actually passed away. And so those kinds of moments are really beautiful to witness, because a lot of celebrities will say, oh, I have a connection with someone on the panel. Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls used to also be on this show as a judge, but now her spot has been replaced with Rita Ora, who I didn't know really that well. I just knew she was a singer and artist, and started to come up when I was maybe a teenager. but I never really listened to her songs. Now it's interesting because I hear her speak and I hear her on the judge panel, and I feel like she's very musically inclined. Like she might even be pitch perfect, like have perfect pitch and be able to hear notes exactly and be really good with voices. And she's really good at the guesses for sure, and hearing idiosyncrasies and details, niche details in certain people's voices over others, which is definitely a gift and definitely impressive. But it's funny because her name, Rita Ora, it sounds like read the aura. Like, yo, read the room, man. But like, no, read the aura of someone. Aura. But her name is Rita or Ora. But also reminds me of how with human ears, the outside of it, the structure is called oracle with an A, like oral, like to hear something, it's called oral, Aural, and then that is oracle, Auricle, but it's not related to oracle, Oracle. It's right, a different kind of hearing, a different kind of knowing, a different kind of song, music. And so I'm here to say, basically, with all of that, is not only do I love Ken Jeong because he's hilarious and his guesses are actually pretty good, and a lot of them have been spot on recently. He calls Nick Cannon daddy because Nick Cannon is the daddy of the millennial generation. Because if you are my age, you remember Nick Cannon to be the host and actor of like so many MTV shows, BET shows. Every show he was like hosting live in New York. He was hosting TV shows on MTV like TRL. He was on, he had like Pit My Ride, I think was also Nick Cannon's show. What makes Nick Cannon also really important was that, he's not just does he have a bunch of kids, but his first marriage and first children were with Mariah Carey. We Belong Together, Mariah Carey, Christina Aguilera. These women were at the forefront with Britney Spears.